Right. Okay. So coming up, we have our second question for today. Is we need to, he's asking us how to find the vertex of a quadratic equation. So find the vertex of a quadratic equation. Right. So there are several steps that help us finding the vertex of quadratic equation. So let me write it down here. So step 1, we need to write the equation in the standard form. Standard form of the quadratic equation. Right, so the keyword here would be the standard form, which is in forms like y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. Right. Okay, so that's our first step. And for our second step, we need to find the x-coordinate of the vertex. Find the x-coordinate of the vertex, which can be represented by negative b over 2a. Negative b over 2a is the value we want. And our third step, we need to find the y-coordinate we just need to replace the variable x in the quadratic equation with the value obtained for negative b over 2a, then compute y. Right. And usually the y value can always be presented by 4ac minus b squared over 4a. And now I'm going to prove why this is true. Okay, so we have our x is negative b over 2a. And now I'm going to sub this back into our standard form, which is the formula here, the equation here. All right, so for left hand side, it's still going to be y. And instead of writing x squared, it's going to be negative b over 2a squared times a plus b times, instead of times x, it's going to times negative b over 2a and plus c as n. All right, so now let's get rid of the bracket. So negative, the square of negative b is going to be b squared, and for the denominator 2a squared is just going to be 4a squared times a plus, so negative b times b is going to be negative b squared over 2a. 2a maintains the same, and plus c at the end. So we got a on the numerator and a squared on the denominator, so we can get rid of 1a, which will give us b squared over 4a minus b squared over 2a plus c. Since we got a 4a on the first fraction and a 2a on the second fraction, we want to somehow change them to a same denominator. So we'll maintain b squared over 4a is the same, minus, we want a 4a on the bottom, so which means we need to times 2 for each top and bottom. So b squared times 2 is just going to be 2b squared and plus c. And now we have 4a for both fractions, so we can do our subtracting. So 4a maintains the same, and for the numerator part, it's just going to be b squared minus 2b squared and plus c. So this becomes to 4a negative b squared plus c, and we can also rewrite c as 4ac over 4a, because if you want to divide 4a for both top and bottom, it's still going to be equal to c. Yeah. So these two has the same denominator again, so we'll do our subtracting. Which is going to be the denominator part will still be 4a, and for the top it's going to be 4ac minus b squared, and that's exactly what we want. Right. And I'm just going to use a couple more diagrams and graphs to help you understanding how to find the vertex. So let's say we have a graph look like this, and that's our x-axis and the y-axis. That's 0, and we got our quadratic equation. Y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c to represent this parabola. And here the point is negative 1 and 1. And there's another parabola here. This part is going to be negative 1, negative 1. So the vertex of the quadratic equation is a minimum or maximum point in the graph. So in the example I gave, for this point, it is a minimum point. And this point is our maximum point. Yeah. And right, so in the given example, the vertex of the parabola is represented by these pink spots in the pink dots. So the vertex of the for the upper one is going to be negative 1, 1, and the vertex for the bottom one is going to be negative 1, negative 1. Right. So let's do example. of how to solve a question of calculating the vertex of quadratic equation. So we're given a quadratic equation as y is equal to x squared plus 2x plus 2. So our first step, remember the given equation is already in the standard form of the quadratic equation, so we don't need to do anything about it. So let's just define what a, b, and c are. Okay, so step 1, because a, b, c are pretty much just a coefficient that are in front of the variable. So in this case, a is equal to 1, b is equal to 2, and c is just going to be 2. Because remember, the standard form is y is equal to x squared plus bx plus c. Right. Oops, step 1. And coming up step 2, we need to compute the x coordinate by getting the value of negative b over 2a. So negative b over 2a, which is equal to, let's start a new line. So x is equal to negative b over 2a, and in our case, b is 2, a is 1. So it's just going to be negative 2 over 2 times 1, which is negative 1. Alright, so step 3. So we need to compute for our y coordinate by substituting the value of x calculated above in the given quadratic equation. So let's copy down the original equation first. Y is equal to x squared plus 2x plus 2. And we know that x is equal to negative 1. So we will sub x is equal to negative 1 back. So we will get, instead of writing x squared, it's going to be negative 1 squared. And 2 times negative 1 plus 2, which is equal to 1 minus 2 plus, and the solution is correct.